I never thought a single night could change the course of everything I had worked for. But that was before I realized how far deceit could stretch in the life I thought I knew. My name is Daniel, and I had always prided myself on seeing the world clearly. Knowing who people really were beneath the smiles, the polite words, and the carefully constructed facades. My wife Allison had been my partner for nearly 8 years. To the outside world we were a picture-perfect couple. Elegant dinners, shared vacations, and quiet laughter over morning coffee. But behind closed doors, I had started noticing cracks, small at first, like a hairline fracture in glass that seems harmless until the pressure builds. Allison was always meticulous, controlling, but I had never questioned her motives. I trusted her. I should have known better. The first sign came subtly, a lingering phone call she would take in the other room, a sudden flush of nerves when I entered a room, her words becoming measured, careful, almost rehearsed. I brushed it off as stress, work-related pressure, the same excuses we all tell ourselves to avoid facing truths we are not ready to accept. But deep down a nagging voice whispered. Something was off. It was a Thursday evening when the confirmation hit me, and everything began to unravel. I returned home earlier than usual, something I almost never did. The house was silent, the lights dimmed as if the whole place were holding its breath. I heard whispers from the study, a soft, familiar voice, but not alone. My pulse quickened as I approached, and then I saw them. Allison and a man I did not recognize, their closeness undeniable, the intimacy impossible to ignore. My world constricted in that instant. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was as real as the floor beneath my feet. I didn't scream, I didn't run, I didn't demand an explanation. That was never my style. My approach was always measured, calculated. I stepped back, retreated silently, and let the evidence present itself, piece by piece, until it became undeniable. Over the next few days I watched, observed, and documented. Every secret meeting, every hushed conversation, every lie carefully masked with a smile was recorded, catalogued, and stored. Allison believed her actions were invisible, that her cleverness would shield her. But she underestimated me, not just my resolve, but my ability to see past her mask to the very core of her intentions. By Sunday evening I had compiled everything I needed. I could have confronted her then, thrown accusations, demanded apologies, perhaps even forgiveness. But I didn't. What I wanted wasn't a fleeting moment of anger. It was justice, a reckoning that would leave no room for denial, no room for her to salvage the image she so carefully constructed in front of family, friends, and the world. I realized then that this wasn't just about infidelity. This was about integrity, about ensuring that deceit carried consequences that matched its magnitude. The first conversation I had with Allison after gathering the evidence was deceptively calm. I didn't storm in with rage, didn't throw objects, didn't cry. I simply sat across from her at the dining table, letting the silence stretch, letting her imagination fill the emptiness with the dread she couldn't yet name. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled, a mix of fear and desperation. "Daniel, please don't. I can explain," she pleaded, eyes wide, searching mine for a shred of mercy. But I had long abandoned mercy in this context. I had realized that betrayal is not something that can be forgiven with apologies or excuses. It is something that demands acknowledgement, accountability, and consequences severe enough to imprint the lesson on the soul. Her eyes darted around the room, as if seeking a hiding place from the storm she had brewed herself. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm but edged with unshakable certainty. "Allison, I've seen everything," I said simply. No shouting, no theatrics, just the weight of truth. That weight pressed down on her like a hand she could not shake off. Her face paled. She had counted on cleverness, on manipulation, on her ability to charm her way out of every situation. But this time charm had no place. There was only consequence. She tried bargaining, tried twisting the narrative. "Daniel, it's not what it looks like. I made a mistake. I was lonely, it meant nothing." But I didn't flinch. Each word she spoke only reaffirmed the meticulous documentation I had gathered over the past week. Every text, every hidden message, every covert meeting was accounted for. I didn't need her confessions, they were irrelevant. The evidence spoke for itself, louder than any excuse she could conjure. Then came the part she didn't see coming, the inheritance. Allison had always been proud of her family's wealth, the legacy carefully preserved for generations. It was her security blanket, the crown jewel of her life beyond our marriage. She had assumed that no one could touch it, that it was untouchable. She was wrong. I had spent the past week quietly researching, consulting, and constructing a legal framework that would ensure that her actions would have real consequences. Consequences she could neither charm nor manipulate her way out of. This was not revenge in its petty form. This was calculated, precise, and morally justified. Every asset she thought was untouchable would now be tied directly to the breach of trust she had perpetrated. Every inheritance frozen, every legal pathway blocked. When I finally told her what was at stake, the color drained from her face. "You can't," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of inevitability. I didn't need to respond. The law, the evidence, and the consequences were all aligned. An unstoppable chain reaction triggered by her own choices. In that moment, she realized that deceit carries a price, and for her, that price was total and uncompromising. The following days were a tense silence in our home. A quiet storm that neither of us could ignore. Allison moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding my eyes, avoiding my presence, as if sheer avoidance could erase the truth. But I didn't need apologies, tears, or explanations. What mattered was accountability, and now accountability had taken a concrete, irreversible form. I worked with my attorney to finalize the legal procedures. Every clause, every condition, every loophole that Allison might have relied on was carefully accounted for, sealed, and executed. The process was meticulous, surgical, leaving nothing to chance. While she had believed her cleverness and charm could manipulate every situation, she underestimated one thing: my patience, my attention to detail, and my unwillingness to allow deception to remain unpunished. When the day came to confront her with the final outcome, she tried to bargain once more. Tears in her eyes, desperation in her voice. "Daniel, please. I can make it right. I'll change. Just don't." Her words faltered as she realized the extent of what she had lost. Every asset tied to her inheritance, every financial pathway, every potential claim blocked. Her pleas, her manipulations, her charm. All meaningless against the solid evidence and the law aligned with justice. In that moment, I felt no satisfaction in cruelty. I felt satisfaction in justice served. She had made choices, and those choices had consequences. Her betrayal was no longer a whisper in the shadows. It was a lesson, undeniable, permanent. It was not just about wealth, though that had been her currency of pride. It was about integrity, trust, and the price one pays when deceit overrides honor. Allison's face, pale and unrecognizable in its desperation, finally mirrored the reality she had tried to avoid. The consequences of her actions were absolute. The same woman who had laughed, charmed, and manipulated now understood the weight of her choices. I didn't gloat. I didn't revel. I simply allowed reality to unfold, letting her witness firsthand the natural result of her betrayal. In the end, I learned something as well. Betrayal can strike silently, invisibly, but patience, observation, and strategic action ensure it never goes unanswered. Allison's pleas for silence were futile. Truth always surfaces. Lies have a shelf life and deceit carries a price. And sometimes justice is not loud or vengeful. It is precise, unwavering, and final. That night, as I watched her leave the house, empty-handed and defeated, I realized that trust, once broken, must be matched with consequences that honor the truth. And in that understanding, I found not only closure, but clarity.